News! Okay, we'll start with this. It's official. The beast from Brazil, Beatriz Ferreira, is aiming to become a world champion in just her fifth pro fight against Argentina's own Yanina Lescano, April 27th, next month in Liverpool. And I've already touched on this fight. I've already talked about it in passing, that I expect the aesthetic of this match to look a lot like the aesthetic of Yanina's fight with Caroline Dubois.
Over there on the boxer side of things.
Yanina Lescano, a tough Argentinian slugger. She lost to Caroline Dubois. I anticipate she's going to lose to Beatriz Ferreira for the same reason, in the same fashion. Because Beatriz is a hell of a boxer, but she's got a mean streak. She's ferocious with power to boot, speed, athleticism, combinations, angles.
What you get from Caroline, you get from Beatriz.
The difference being that Beatriz Ferreira is some years older than Caroline Dubois, with the difference being that Caroline is more focused on her professional career than Beatriz is. Beatriz still aims to win more Olympic jewelry, more Olympic gold. She means to become a champion the same year she means to win another medal for Brazil, for herself. She won the gold in the IEBA tournament in 2019, the silver in the Olympics. Now she's going back.
Back for the gold.
She is dividing her time between the pros and the amateurs, whereas Caroline, she's focused on the pros, and maybe that's why you see more of her, hear more about her, hear more about Caroline than you do Beatriz, even though they're both supremely talented, but one is noticeably older than the other, and that's Beatriz. Caroline has a lot more good years to give to the sport of boxing, whereas Beatriz...
Caroline is only 23 years old. Beatriz Ferreira is 31. Not the oldest, but certainly not the youngest.
Either way you slice it, the next wave of champions, lightweight champions, the next wave is here. Beatriz Ferreira of Brazil, Rhiannon Dixon of the United Kingdom, Caroline Dubois, of course, I've no doubts she'll become a champion soon. She'll become a champion shortly. And if Terry Harper, who we talked about in my previous video, if she is in fact moving back down, there's a chance she might become a 3-division champion. There's a chance she might become a champion at lightweight herself, en route to what could be a Rhiannon Dixon showdown. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Back to Beatriz.
I've always felt that because Beatriz Ferreira divides her time between amateur tournaments to qualify for the Olympics and making her bones in the pros, you don't see her as much as you could or should. That's saying that once this year comes and goes, once this year is over, perhaps they might ramp up promotion for her.
Why is she doing that?
Well, it could be a pride thing, you know, her competitive spirit, that she wants to go back, she thinks she can do better, she thinks she can win the gold, but there's also that, you know, those amateurs, they get paid to do that.
Those Olympians.
Sponsors, endorsements, and things of that nature. It is an additional arm of revenue for Beatriz Ferreira, who doubles as both an amateur and a professional, whatever she makes from her professional fight purses and whatever she's getting paid in the Emmys. So it's two arms of revenue, the best of both worlds. You have to remember, as talented as she is, she's a Brazilian national, and the Brazilian boxing scene is not a booming boxing scene like the British one or the American one, the Asian one or the Australian one.
That as a woman boxer in Brazil, how much money is that really going to get you? All by itself, just being a professional, how much money is out there?
Obviously, the goal is to change that and enhance the sport's profile in as many regions as possible, though if you're Beatriz and you can get money from both the amateurs and the pros, then why wouldn't you? She's fighting for a title in what will be her fifth professional fight.
That's fortunate.
That's good because she's already 31 years old. So that she's getting to fight for a title after just a few fights.
That's good.
Is beneficial. She didn't have to wait till she was 33, 34, or 35 in her mid-30s before she got the challenge for a world title. That it's happening quickly. She has the skills for it. I don't have a doubt in my mind.
The added benefit of these extended amateur careers is that you can hit the ground running in the pros.
She has, and the lay of the land, the look of it, you're going to have two fighters, two champions, potentially two of them, that don't have much of an amateur background, and two that do. Those two are Caroline and Beatriz, which begs the question, when can we expect to see a fight between them? Not this year, I think, but perhaps next year, when they both have belts, and it's a unification match. For now, look for the ring return of Beatriz Ferreira for what is the newly vacated IBF title in late April. Now, as it pertains to this weekend's fight on Friday, the Top Rank show featuring Oscar Valdez versus Liam Wilson in the main event per a tweet from Boxing Scribe Dake Jonovan. Oscar Valdez versus Liam Wilson is now sanctioned as an interim WBO 130-pound title fight. The winner will have 120 days from May 18th, Navarrete versus Berenchik for the WBO at 135, to challenge Navarrete if he returns to 130, and I don't think he's going to. If he wins in May and stays at 135, this weekend's winner will be elevated to full WBO 130-pound champion. Oscar Valdez's chance to become a two-time super featherweight champion.
And what is a stacked division.
Snooze freezes out Albert Bell, the long and waiting number one contender. Bell and Archie Sharp previously requested the same interim title fight status. Motion was denied by the WBO based on Navarrete's super champion status, and that a mandatory wasn't due until February of next year.
So Oscar and Liam got the consideration from the WBO that Albert and Archie didn't get.
Not surprising, Bob Arum and his fighters have always had a way with the WBO, not dissimilar from what you see with the PBC and the WBA. That's how it breaks down.
It's a good fight.
It's intriguing. Liam Wilson has seen action 2 times since losing to Emmanuel Navarrete. He's on a 2-fight winning streak currently, whereas Oscar's coming right off that loss to that same guy, coming off that loss to Emmanuel, a lopsided loss. It wasn't as competitive between Oscar and Emmanuel as it was between Liam and Emmanuel.
Liam's a big 130 too. Tall, long for the weight.
I'm expecting a good fight. I am. Given the fight's location and Oscar Valdez's previous experiences against several fighters, not just Emmanuel, but other guys, some fights that he won, some fights that he lost, he may seem the logical choice. Maybe he is.
But he's been in some wars, man.
Fight with Scott Quigg many years ago where he got his jaw broken. The more recent lopsided loss to Emmanuel Navarrete.
Been in some wars.
Lost a lopsided decision to Shakur Stevenson too, but he didn't take much damage in that fight. He was no worse for wear. He just got outboxed.
Didn't get ragdolled or nothing.
So does he have enough left in the tank to beat a Liam Wilson? What worked for Liam Wilson in the Emmanuel Navarrete fight is this is a very tall fighter and a very long fighter for the division, for the weight, whereas Emmanuel, he was just moving up there. He was just arriving at 130 pounds, and given Emmanuel's come-forward aggression, his pressure fighting, Liam was able to walk him into shots, walk him into counterpunches. Perhaps Oscar will take a more measured approach than Emmanuel did.
Maybe.
Emmanuel kept walking into punches.
Maybe Oscar won't. Maybe Oscar will take a more measured approach. He's a shorter fighter, stumpier, lower center of gravity. Not as big a target.
I still feel like, in spite of all his wear and tear and the wars that he's been in, based on his experiences and where the fight is taking place, that he still is the logical choice in this weekend's contest. And if he wins, he will become WBO interim champion, which could, at least in theory, get him a second fight with Emmanuel Navarrete. I'm not sure that he wants one, and even if he does, I'm not sure he'll get it. That would be contingent upon what happens at 135 in May. Personally, I don't think Emmanuel's going to move back down.
I don't know. It's in the air.
If he wins, then he's definitely not moving back down. If he becomes WBO champion at 135, he'll vacate the title he currently holds at 130. That's if he wins. But if he loses,
Dennis Berenchik is a live animal, unbeaten guy.
he can fight. I've seen him. And this will be Emmanuel's first fight at lightweight. His first fight at 135. We saw what his first fight at 130 looked like. The fight with Liam Wilson. He struggled in that fight. Could he struggle in this one? It's in the air.
If he wins, I think he definitely stays at lightweight. Moves into a unification match with the winner of Lomachenko versus Kambosos. If he wins. But if he loses...
Does he go back down to 130? Is that what he does?
Not sure.
We'll see. Currently, at 130 pounds, where this weekend's contest is taking place, at 130, Lamont Roach has got the WBA. Oshaki Foster, he's got the WBC. He's with Top Rank, just like Oscar Valdez. Matchroom's own Joe Cordinia, he's got the IBF. And, as stated, Emmanuel Navarrete, he still has the WBO.
But for how long?
If Oscar wins this weekend, becomes WBO interim champion, and Emmanuel, he does what he needs to do at 135.
Right.
Becomes champion up there, vacates the title he's got at 130. It goes to Oscar. What I could then see happening is a fight between Oscar Valdez and Oshaki Foster for the WBC and WBO titles.
In-house fight.
For Top Rank, it would be, though there are a lot of moving parts to this scenario. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. As it pertains to this weekend's fight, I still think Oscar's the logical choice.
I know he's coming off a loss.
I know Liam Wilson did better against Emmanuel than Oscar did. I know.
Triangle theories don't work.
Maybe Oscar's more measured approach will be enough to beat Liam Wilson on Friday, I'm going to go with Oscar Valdez, tenuously.
Tentatively, I'm gonna go with Oscar to win.
Men's light heavyweight news, I came across a nasty rumor this morning, a prevalent rumor that's popping up all over the place in the boxing cosmos across the Atlantic Ocean. Our good buddies in the UK who are saying what they're hearing is that Anthony Yarde won't be fighting Joshua Buatsi next. He's going to be fighting Callum Smith in June on the undercard of Better Beef versus Bivol in what is the first installment of Matchroom versus Queensberry. And this is just a rumor. It should be treated as such, but for argument's sake, just for conversation, for discussion, let's say that's the way that it happens. Joshua Buatsi would then be up the creek without a paddle. He migrated from Matchroom over to Boxer on the premise that he thought he would get more exposure on Sky Sports than on DAZN.
That really hasn't happened.
I feel like all that really resulted in was driving a wedge between Joshua Buatsi and the Matchroom fighters, the Matchroom guys.
Dimitri Bivol, Callum Smith.
May still be in negotiations with Anthony Yarde unless news breaks by the time that this video is uploaded that fight is either made or dead in the water. We'll see. Though on the premise that the rumor is true and Anthony don't fight Joshua Buatsi next, he fights Callum Smith. He participates in the Matchroom versus Queensberry tournament. Joshua Buatsi's fucked. I'd say he is, because there are no other high-profile fights floating around anywhere at light heavyweight in the UK or anywhere else. The two champions at the weight, not that Joshua Buatsi wants to fight them, the two champions, they're supposed to be boxing each other in June. The other big names at light heavyweight, like an Anthony Yarde or Callum Smith, in this situation, they're boxing each other. Where does that leave you? You've already been there and done that with Craig Richards.
Like I said, crossing over from DAZN back over to Sky Sports has not proven to be a fruitful endeavor yet for Joshua Buatsi. All that really got him was a domestic-level fight with a domestic-level guy in Dan Aziz.
Joshua Buatsi needs this Anthony Yarde fight. Boxer needs this Anthony Yarde fight. His rationale was that by going back to Sky Sports, where he was boxing before Matchroom parted ways with him, that would get more eyes on its fights.
Is that working out for you?
It's the first thing he said when that news was announced. I think it's been over a year now since he crossed over, but very little has come out of that. While negotiating for this fight with Anthony Yarde, that potentiality was always there, that Anthony's options are not limited to a Joshua Buatsi fight, which is a very big fight in the UK, but he could also box Callum Smith
in Saudi,
the byproduct of Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn's newfound working relationship.
Talked about that.
How Boxer, that stable in Ben Shalom, seems to be the odd man out in all of this.
Tough break, kid.
Over a year out from that exodus, can we say that these fighters are better off now, over a year later, than they were a year before? Are they better off now at Boxer than they were at Matchroom? Well, maybe we can say that when it comes to Natasha Jonas and Chris Billum-Smith, but we really can't say that about Joshua Buatsi, and we really can't say that about Lawrence Okolie, who seems to have enlisted the aid of veteran trainer Joe Gallagher ahead of what is to be his Bridgerweight debut, his Bridgerweight title fight against Bridgerweight champion Lukas Rozenski in Poland.
Gonna be the away fighter again.
And what these two have in common seems to be a shared disdain for Eddie Hearn, a shared disdain for Matchroom and all things Matchroom. But how's that working out for Lawrence?
Does this pairing worsen or improve upon Lawrence's chances in Poland? Because that's where the fight's going down.
Joe Gallagher's been around. He's got experience. He's trained champions before. He used to train Callum Smith. He currently trains Natasha Jonas and now Lawrence Okolie alongside her. But looking at this, what it essentially means is as the away fighter, he's going to be experimenting with a new corner, breaking in a new trainer, having not fought in a year's time the night of, against a very aggressive fighter, strong puncher that has home field advantage. To look at Lukas Rozenski, what you see is what you get. And it all seems very simple from the outside looking in. He's a mauler. He's a brawler. He's strong.
Not very many bells and whistles there.
Seems a very simple fighter. Yes, simple from the outside looking in, but from the inside, it's Lawrence who has to deal with him. And even for a mauler, you need certain ingredients. You need coordination, movement, timing,
framing.
From the outside looking in, he may seem simple, but when he's in there and he's trying to take your head off, suddenly it's not so simple. And that's the situation for Lawrence. The night of, they will have both been out roughly a year's time, but a fighter like Lucas is less reliant on timing because he has a more straightforward approach. Timing would most affect Lawrence, trying to time the smaller man on the way in to land hard punches.
That the ring rust might affect Lawrence a little more than it affects Lucas.
And I remember upon Lawrence's departure from Matchroom, a small cult of individuals that really don't like Eddie Hearn, they don't like DAZN, they don't like Matchroom or anything affiliated with them. They were egging Lawrence Okolie on, making out Eddie Hearn to be the bad guy, when I happen to think if Lawrence was still a Matchroom fighter now, he'd still be a champion.
Ben's not doing the job with this fighter that Eddie was doing.
If you're pretending he is, and you're pretending that all of this didn't backfire on Lawrence, then I don't know what your problem is.
Being childish.
Burden unto itself, a combination of entitlement and being headstrong, is what led Lawrence to these less than favorable circumstances. I mean, if you're going to Poland for this fight, that's saying that Sky Sports and Boxer didn't even care to pay for your next show, to bring that guy to you.
They ain't paying for it, likely because they didn't want to.
So what happened to that promise of becoming the face of Sky Sports Boxing? Is that's what he was told? That's a part of what got him to cross over there? Is that how it all worked out?
No.
And still, some hold to this grudge, seemingly, this axe they have to grind with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom and DAZN, making no light of how all of this backfired for Lawrence. It was all fun in the sun in the moment. Over a year later, tell me that Lawrence is better off for having left them.
In a dead division that no one watches, traveling abroad as the away fighter to face a hard-punching mauler that will have home field advantage.
In the sport, the pursuit of short-term gains can have long-term repercussions, and that's what we're seeing in Lawrence Okolie.
I don't wish ill upon him.
That's without condoning or condemning, because the situation just is what it is. You wanted to leave Matchroom so bad, you got to do that. But where did it get you?
Is this what you wanted?
What they promised.
Is it?
I actually like the fight. It's intriguing. Lawrence is not often described as a fan-friendly fighter, but Lukas Rozansky, he is.
Love a good mauler.
For all of their tactical and technical limitations, they do make for fan-friendly fights, TV-friendly fights that draw eyes.
Can Lawrence win this thing?
There's a chance. Lawrence is a strong puncher.
But so is Lucas.
A fact that makes the match intriguing.